when I heard that Phó Huyên had been in a car accident. I dropped everything, even the piano final, and raced to the hospital in a blind panic. But when I got there, I realized he wasn't hurt at all. It was all a setup, an elaborate lie. Phó Thu, she really quit the competition. The championship is definitely Bội Bội now. Tisk, tisk. Only Phó Thu would dare use Miss Ko as part of his little game. Phó Huyên smirked, a faint, arrogant curve on his lips. What else could I do? She loves me too deeply to resist. I froze for a moment, then turned to leave. My hand trembled as I gripped my phone, dialing a familiar number. Dad, about the engagement party next month. I want to change the groom. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Hebe Audio for more great stories every day. Phó Huyên and I grew up together. Everyone just assumed we'd end up as a couple. But truth be told, I'd never even held his hand once. He was blunt about it too. Min Yen. What we have is sibling affection. Nothing more. If it weren't for my foster mother forcing the engagement on her deathbed, I'd never marry you. So he drank, flirted, and even toyed with my stepsister without a shred of guilt. And whenever I got angry, he'd smirk and say, "That's how it works in our circle, marry for money. Love who you want. Even if we get married, we'll live freely, no interference from either side." The day I left the hospital, I turned off my phone and went on a 1-week trip. It cost quite a bit, but strangely enough, my mind felt lighter than it had in years. When I got home and turned my phone back on, it nearly exploded from all the missed calls. Everyone was asking where I'd gone. Apparently, Phó Huyên had gone insane searching for me. I posted a single status. Phó Huyên and I have no connection whatsoever. From now on, unless he's dead, I don't want to hear another word about him. Less than 30 minutes later, he stormed into my house. Standing in the doorway, he froze when he saw me, surprise flickering in his eyes before his face darkened. "I was in the hospital for a week and you didn't even care to visit." He snapped. "Now you're all dressed up. Who are you trying to impress?" I didn't bother pretending. "A guy, obviously. Good dogs stay out of the way. Move." He laughed, low and mocking, trying to piss me off. "Huh? As if any of the men around you are worth my jealousy." I sighed. "If you've already decided not to believe me, why bother asking?" He nudged my shoulder, his tone softening. "Come on, Min Yen, don't be mad. Tomorrow's my birthday. Even Phó Din Han, the deaf one, is flying back for the party. You should come too. Don't embarrass me." Phó Din Han, the illegitimate son of the Phó family, was 2 years older than him, smarter, steadier, and far more capable. Every time I'd say, "Even Phó Din Han is better than you. What exactly do you have to brag about?" it would drive Phó Huyên mad enough to burn the world. Now, seeing him try to coax me like this, I knew he didn't want to lose face in front of Din Han. I smiled. "Of course I'll come. After all, Din Han will soon be my fiancé. I should cheer him on. Shouldn't I?" His face turned to ice. "Ko Min Yen, you'd really say something that insane just to provoke me? Fine, let's see who breaks first this time." From that day on, he doubled down, dragging Bội Bội on shopping sprees, buying her jewelry, designer clothes, taking affectionate photos, flooding social media with them like he couldn't wait for the whole world to know she was his true love. He probably thought I'd lose my mind again, call him, scream at him, curse him out like before. But what he didn't know was, Bội Bội had already switched sides. The day I walked out of the piano finals, she had quit too. Her mother, Quan Thuc Gi, had slapped her twice across the face, and I happened to witness it. "Quan Thuc Gi," I said coldly, "if you lay a hand on her again, I'll freeze your credit card." Her face went pale. She didn't dare argue. That night, Bội Bội sneaked into my room, eyes glistening. "Sis, I swear, there's nothing between me and Phó Huyên." Turned out, he'd paid her to act out a fake romance, to provoke me. To make everyone think I was the desperate one who couldn't let go. When I found out, I honestly wanted to study the structure of his brain. If brain dissection weren't illegal, he'd already be on the operating table. After some thought, I borrowed Bội Bội phone and texted him. "Phó Thu, your act worked, your sister's heartbroken. Transfer another 500,000. And by your birthday, I'll make sure she's shattered enough to crawl back to you." He didn't reply, just transferred the money immediately. Boy's eyes lit up at the sight of those zeros and handed me 300,000. I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Miss Lamb, for the generous tip." She laughed nervously, then started massaging my shoulders like a loyal pet. Later that night, I sent a few photos of evening gowns to someone else. "I'm going to Phó Huyin's birthday. Which dress do you think suits me best?" The typing bubble blinked on the screen for a long time. Meanwhile, across town, Phó Huyên was on a video call with Bội. "Go check what your sister's up to," he said. She glanced at me, then answered obediently, "She's flirting with some guy." Phó Huyên chuckled smugly. "She's doing it on purpose, to get a rise out of me. She still cares." Laughter erupted on the other end. Phó Thu really has a way with women. Even the proud Miss Ko turned soft for him. Their words were so filthy I wanted to slap every one of them. But Phó Huyên, the one being humiliated, just blushed and stayed silent. Then, suddenly, a chair scraped back. Someone stood, grabbed a bottle, and hurled it straight at the man who'd spoken. It was Phó Dinh Han. He didn't message me for 3 days after that. When I asked around, I found out he was grounded for causing a scene at the dinner. After all, he was only the illegitimate son. Scandal was unavoidable. Rumors spread that he was violent. No one cared to mention why he'd done it. The man he'd hit, Lam V, was a lumber merchant trying to cozy up to Phó Huyên for a furniture contract. Thinking about it, I dressed to kill and went to Phó Huyên's birthday party. The private room buzzed with laughter and karaoke. But the moment I stepped in, the noise died down. Phó Huyên was singing a duet with Bội. His voice faltered the instant he saw me. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "She's stunning tonight. Like a goddess descending. Still can't get over Phó Thu. Huh?" Hearing that, his lips curled in satisfaction. He waved Lam V over and said to me, "Min Yen, my friend here might have offended you. Poor guy's factory lost its biggest order and had to shut down. He's here to apologize. Mind forgiving him this once?" Lam V forced a greasy smile. Bowing slightly, I didn't even glance at him, just walked right past. Silence fell over the room. I stopped in front of Phó Dinh Han and nudged his leg with my foot. He looked up, a little embarrassed, a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, apparently. His father had hit him. I studied him for a few seconds, then said coolly, "So that's why you haven't answered my calls? Too busy swallowing your pride in tears?" Impressive restraint, Phó Dinh Han. He said nothing, just quietly stepped aside. Then Phó Huyên approached, voice edged with irritation. "No birthday gift for me, Min Yen?" I smiled. "A funeral wreath. Want one?" His face drained of color. Someone shoved him toward me, clearly hoping for a scandalous scene. I sidestepped, lost balance, and fell straight into Phó Dinh Han's arms. His hand caught my waist, warm, firm, sending a jolt through me. I felt his grip tighten slightly, his body stiffen. That backless gown was definitely worth it. He steadied me, gently setting me upright. Amid the laughter and chatter, he remained perfectly calm, too calm. If I hadn't known how fiercely he once kissed me, I might have believed this man was nothing but a still, unshaken lake. No one knew my secret. Once upon a time, I had a thing with Phó Dinh Han. After high school, I applied to a local university. Out of nowhere, Phó Huyên changed his plans and flew off to study in England. Overnight, I became the city's favorite punchline. People whispered, even good men fear clingy women. And rumors spread that he'd run away from me in silent terror. When I called to confront him, he simply dropped his signature line. "Marry the rich, sleep with the one you love." That night, I got drunk with my girlfriends, cursing him as a brainless fool. Someone mentioned Phó Dinh Han, the Phó family's illegitimate, half-deaf son. He's like a flower growing on a mountaintop. Girls chase him for years, but he never wavers. Let's bet, whoever makes him fall first gets a limited edition Hermes bag. And just to piss off Phó Huyên, I joined the game. Phó Dinh Han was 2 years ahead of me, majoring in IT at a top university nearby, a quiet genius, campus heartthrob, and textbook introvert. I followed him whenever I could and discovered his life was mind-numbingly routine. Running at 6 sharp every morning. Library at 3 unless he had class. Fishing by the lakeside at 8 after dinner. After just a few days, I was ready to quit. Dating someone like that? I'd die of boredom. Ironically, the night I decided to give up was the night it all began. He was at the lake as usual, fishing rod in hand. I, on the other hand, was being devoured alive by mosquitoes. Swatting like a madwoman. I must have looked pathetic because he suddenly walked over, handed me a small herbal balm, and said flatly, "Wearing a backless dress to go fishing? Bold choice." I stared at my outfit in silence. Well, what's a little suffering for the sake of performance? My back itched like crazy, so I asked him to apply the balm for me. I swear, I had zero ulterior motives. The man was too upright to take advantage of anyone. But he stood there, holding the bottle, not moving, just as I was about to be eaten alive. He finally said, "Sorry, I only touched my girlfriend's skin." Without thinking, I blurted out, "Then I'll be your girlfriend." He looked at me for a few seconds, then said calmly, "Okay." And just like that, I, half drunk, half impulsive, won over Phó Huyên. From that day on, besides fishing, reading, and long walks, he gained a new hobby, kissing me. Back to the present. At the party, Phó Huyên, furious from my earlier jab, wrapped an arm around Bội Bội and sang a love duet. I ignored them and took a seat beside Dean Han. The room was buzzing with laughter, alcohol, and hollow chatter, only he sat quietly, self-contained amid the chaos. In a dim corner, I leaned against his hand, his palm rested on my bare back, radiating a heat that burned through the fabric. Beneath the table, I slipped off my heels, my bare foot slowly tracing up the leg of his trousers. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly, but his gaze never left the bouquet on the table. I put my shoes back on and stood up. On my way out, I plucked a single rose from the vase. Just before the door shut, I saw Phó Huyên lower the microphone, his expression dark and unreadable. Someone asked, "Not singing anymore, Phó Thu?" He scowled. She didn't even look at me. What's the point? I sat on the balcony railing and began to count down. On the 48th second, the door opened. It took less than a minute to get from the private room to here. But he came in 48 seconds, fast. Too fast. Yet his face was calm, unhurried, as if he'd simply been out for a walk. I placed my hand on his chest, his heartbeat was wild. He caught my wrist, eyes downcast. I brushed the rose across his neck, the red petals slipped into his open collar. A quiet temptation against white cotton. I smiled. "Tell me, does what you said still count?" 3 years ago, when I demanded a breakup, he had gripped my hand, eyes shimmering with tears. "Ko Min Yen," he'd said hoarsely, "even if you used me for a bet. For fun, I don't care. Just don't leave me." I'd been angry then, reckless. "I'm getting engaged to Phó Huyên," I'd said. "He's my rightful fiancé. What are you, huh? A side piece?" It took him a long time to answer. I'll be your side piece." Even so, I'd walked away. He stood in the pouring rain, like an abandoned stray. I thought he'd hate me forever, that I'd never see him again. But here he was, colder now, sharper, harder to read. At my question, he looked up, voice like ice. "You think I'm still that fool, Min Yen? You fight with Phó Huyên, then use me to vent. I'm not your dog. You can't just call and dismiss me at will." Tough words, yet he stood there motionless, still positioned against the wind so I wouldn't be cold. I pouted. "Phó Huyên, I'm freezing." Without a word, he took off his jacket and draped it over me carefully. His voice was steady but distant. "Don't mistake this for affection. I just don't want you catching a cold and blaming me later. You're impossible when you're angry." I looped my arms around his neck, my breath brushing his ear. "If you turn me down, I'll get mad. Kiss me, and I'll forgive you." I don't remember who leaned in first, but the moment his lips touched mine, it was like summer rain, hot, suffocating, unstoppable. He carried me into an empty private room, his arms tightening around my waist until I could barely breathe. His lips roamed down my neck, leaving no marks. He was protecting my dignity even now. I tore at his shirt. Buttons scattering. He held back as long as he could before biting my shoulder. Just once. Then, knocks on the door. Min Yen, are you in there? Phó Huyin's voice. The door's unlocked. I'm coming in. The handle turned slowly, creaking loud in the silence. Kneeling on one knee, Jin Han immediately grabbed his jacket and wrapped it around me. I kicked him lightly, whispering, "Don't stop." Just as the door was about to swing open, I shouted, "Phó Huyên, don't come in." I hadn't meant to sound like that. Soft. Breathless. Too sweet. The noise outside stopped. My mind was foggy, my hands still clutching Jin Han's arm. Then came his hoarse voice through the door. "Min Yen, what are you doing in there?" I didn't answer, just rested my head against Jin Han's shoulder, breathing unevenly. He opened a bottle of water, rinsed his mouth, then handed it to me. When his fingers brushed my lips, I bit them. Outside, Phó Huyin's voice cracked. "Don't worry, I won't come in." Jin Han gave a quiet laugh, leaned down, and kissed me again. When I caught my breath, I murmured lazily, "We're cheating, you know, aren't you going to walk in and catch us?" Silence. Then, slowly, his voice, raw and trembling. "Min Yen, I know I was a bastard before. I hurt you, made you angry, but I'll change. I'll treat you right this time. The cake's ready, your favorite mango cream. I'll wait for you." I fixed my makeup and prepared to head back. Before I reached the door, Jin Han asked quietly, "Does what you said still count?" I turned. He stood there with his jacket in hand, stained. Shirt half unbuttoned, collar held together by my hairclip. His face was sharper, colder than I remembered, eyes dark and consuming, like a predator's flower ready to devour. I blinked innocently. Which part? I was pushing him to the edge, and I knew it. His ears flushed red, he clenched his fists, forcing the words out, "Let me be your side piece." I tilted my head, scratching his chin lightly, smiling, "No deal." He caught my hand and bit down gently, not hard, just enough to sting. His voice was low and bitter. "Ko Min Yen, you're toying with me again." The moment I stepped back into the private room, there was a soft pop and rose petals rained down from the ceiling. Phó Huyên was on one knee, holding up a dazzling diamond ring. "Min Yen, we may be getting engaged, but there's so much I haven't said. The truth is, all these years, there's only ever been you. The awful things I did were just to grab your attention, to prove how much I mattered to you. I won't be like that anymore. I'll love you and protect you with everything I have. Min Yen, marry me." His friends whooped and whistled. "Say yes. Just say yes to Phó Thu." I looked at him and his face blurred. We grew up together. Pretending there was no feeling at all would be a lie. On her deathbed, my mother placed our hands together and whispered, "Live well, you too. Promise me you'll live well." She had spent herself dry in that marriage, terrified I'd repeat her tragedy. So she chose Phó Huyên for me. After all, she'd watched him grow up. How bad could he be? For years, I indulged him. Limited edition supercars. Sleepless nights by his bedside when he was sick. In Nam Tan, one word from him and everyone fond, Phó Thu, until he forgot who gave him that glow. The Phó family only rose to wealth in the last few decades, without the Ko family's hand. They'd never have stepped into high society. He could stand shoulder to shoulder with me and stroll through gilded doors because his mother had been my mother's dear friend. He called my mother, foster aunt. I spoiled him because he and I still kept a piece of her. After she died, my father remarried Boy's mother. And sometimes I panicked, realizing the world was quietly forgetting my mother, like a camellia in spring. Brilliant for a moment, then gone, and the garden cold. He saw that fear and pulled me from the hollow. "This is Auntie's favorite kanji shop. Let's come often. Look, the designer she loved. Let's buy it. Even if the world forgets her, I'll remember with you." We once sat in the cemetery at 3 in the morning and talked to her because I'd woken from a dream of her. We once stared at the sky and seriously decided which star was her. Because of all that, I turned a blind eye to his worst habits. I once thought I loved him, but later I understood. What I loved was a relic of my mother. The last piece of her in this world. I stared at him for a long time and said nothing. Worry crept into his face. I lowered my gaze and slid the ring onto my fourth finger. Ugly. He shot to his feet. Thrilled. I knew you'd say yes. Then he flicked a taunting glance at Fa Din Han. I'm the one she truly loves. Not that deaf gigolo-looking mess. No matter how he flaunts himself, he'll end up with nothing. Din Han's expression went glacial. He stood beside me like a shadow, saying nothing to preserve my dignity. I took off the ring and threw it at Phó Huyên, then slipped my arm through Din Han's and tilted my head. I already said it. Phó Din Han is my fiancé. You kneeling to propose today, trying out for the side piece role? Too bad. Even side pieces need love to qualify. As for you, I wouldn't even hire you as a male model. The room froze. Din Han looked at me like he'd been flash frozen, the corners of his eyes reddening. Blinking slowly to keep the tears at bay, his hand trembled. And even I was startled by the way it shook. Phó Huyên crushed the ring in his fist and snarled. Min Yen, even if you're angry at me, you don't have to drag a deaf guy like Phó Din Han in as your shield. One of his friends shouldered into Din Han on purpose. The hearing aid in his left ear fell to the floor. They sneered. How cruel of the young lady. Comparing a deaf nobody to Phó Thu, an illegitimate mutt no one wants, unworthy to even carry Phó Thu's shoes. Din Han couldn't catch the words clearly, and his face went a little pale. I cut a glance at the barking dog, Lam V again. Bandage still on his head, clearly here to ride Phó Huyân's coattails and vent his spite. He swaggered up with a glass of wine and leered. Young lady, how about a wedding toast with Phó Thu? He leaned so close I felt sick. I let my fingertip graze the back of his hand and smiled sweetly. Lam V, isn't it? I remember you. 1 year on my birthday. You sent me 999 roses. No signature, but I checked the security cameras. They were beautiful. I kept them in my room for ages. Total fiction. Anything of unknown origin never made it past the co-gates. But he swallowed it whole. Face going scarlet. He twisted his trouser leg and stammered. Miss. Those bouquets. I gave him an encouraging look and he mustered his courage. I've liked you for a very long time. I appended a bucket of ice over his head and smiled with my eyes. Seems I've been too gentle these past years. If small fry like you dare yap in front of me. Like me? Did you forget a mirror on your way out? Let me wake you up. Din Han took my hand and carefully brushed the melting ice away. Soaked and pathetic, the clown didn't even dare wipe his face. He kept darting panic looks at Phó Huyên. That kind of man dared call me cheap behind my back? Din Han had gone too easy on him that night. If I'd been there, he'd still be in the hospital. I'd been too lenient with Phó Huyân's friends. They'd forgotten who I was, and what they were. Without Phó Huyên, what right did they have to stand in my presence? Rage and shock warred in Phó Huyân's face. Ko Min Yen, you've gone too far. He's my brother. I looked at him, bored. And? So what if he was your brother? I humored you because you're Phó Thu of Nam Tan. Without my courtesy, you wouldn't even step over the threshold. By the next day, news of our breakup had swept through the city. The Phó family threw an apology banquet for me. I sat at the head seat, bored enough to scroll my phone. The guest beside me reeked of cigarettes. I glanced over and frowned. And Phó Huyân's father immediately had him thrown out. He poured me juice and said gently, Min Yen, you and a Huyên have years between you. How can you break up just like that? He was wrong. I've disciplined him. I'll have him take you to Paris for a few months. Shop to your heart's content as an apology. Will that do? Phó Huyên watched me, haggard as if he hadn't slept in days. Face still swollen. Probably the first time he'd been beaten. I smiled. Does it hurt? He nodded instantly. Pitiful. It really hurts. I propped my chin on my hand and said lightly, get used to it. The next rounds will hurt more. His face stalled. His father raised a glass to clink with mine. Posture deferential. I lifted mine and touched it lightly. Uncle Phó. The Phó and Co families have worked together smoothly for years. I won't cut your orders just because I broke up with Phó Huyên. I smiled. Pleasant as spring. Besides, Phó Din Han is also a Phó. In the end, we're still family. The table went still. Every gaze swung to Din Han. No one had taken him seriously today. Everyone assumed he was just a prop I used to spite Phó Huyên. So they'd stuck him at the far end like decoration. After a moment's thought, Phó Huyân's father smiled. You're right, Min Yen. I was short-sighted. Don't worry. Change partners if you wish. no one in Namtan will dare gossip. This is entirely Huyin's fault. He stood and invited Dean Han to the main table. Phó Huyên gaped, then exploded, humiliated and furious. Dad, you want me to give my seat to that deaf bastard? I said coolly. Uncle Phó, from now on, Phó Dean Han is the co-family's son-in-law. If anyone in the Phó family disrespects him, they're disrespecting me. In that case, this dinner is over. Without hesitation, Phó Huyin's father slapped him hard. Is this how I raised you? Dean Han is your elder brother. Watch your mouth. The table erupted in hurried placation. That's right. Huyên, mischief as a kid is one thing. Know your place now. Dean Han suffered years abroad. Come work for the family when you return. Help your father out. For the first time in 25 years, someone in the Phó family acknowledged him. Until today, he'd only ever been called two things, bastard and deaf. Faced with the sudden warmth, his face remained indifferent, a flicker of irony in his eyes. I'd done my part in today's performance, so I took his hand and led him out. So, I asked, how's that grand gesture to cheer you up? Satisfied? He stilled. You came to dinner, just to coax me? I arched a brow and smiled. Why else? He faltered. I thought, you'd changed your mind. I drawled. Not yet. Ask me again later. He kissed me and murmured, I won't give you the chance to regret it. Extra. Phó Dean Han. I've stared at our marriage certificate 100 times and it still feels unreal. The girl I dreamed of for years is now my wife. Everyone thinks I first met Ko Min Yen at the Phó house. But that's wrong. At 17, I had a raging fever that wouldn't break. Instead of taking me to a doctor, my mother dragged my swaying body to the Phó family to beg for money, and got thrown out. Useless, she hissed, slapping me and abandoning me in the street. In the pounding night rain, I sat under a bus shelter, delirious with heat, when she appeared like a sprite in the dark, scarlet dress. Hem embroidered with roses vivid enough to breathe. I gazed at her, half convinced the fever had made me hallucinate. She sat at the far end of the bench, flicked raindrops from her umbrella, and said into the night, my mother still won't divorce. She says it's for me, if she leaves the Ko family, I'll lose my inheritance. Every day she cries and watches my father swap wives like seasons. She's tormenting herself, and she's tormenting me. I don't want anyone to sacrifice themselves for me, and I refuse to live by someone else's fate. Sooner or later I'll take back the whole of Ko Corporation, and set her free. For that same reason, she broke up with me years later. I'd been accepted by a prestigious university abroad and planned to give it up because I couldn't bear to leave. She found out and ended it on the spot. She didn't want me sacrificing anything. Didn't want to bind anyone to her. She isn't a greenhouse flower. She's a lone-winged bird meant for open sky. Before I left, she tossed me her wallet. Go to a doctor. You look like you're about to die. My left ear never recovered from that night, once the fever broke. My hearing was almost gone. I aced the college entrance exam and got into University A with the top score in the city. My ticket into the Phó household. No matter the contempt, I never thought of leaving. Only there did I have a chance to see her again. Everyone in the Phó family knew she and Phó Huyên were childhood sweethearts and were just waiting for her to bring the Ko fortune into their home. Sometimes I thought, if even someone like Phó Huyên could stand beside her, why not me? I became a shadow, quietly tracking everything about her. Later, she went abroad with her mother for treatment. Half a year after her mother died, I saw her again. That evening, the light was fading. She sat in the garden, calm as two voices nearby whispered. I heard Ko Min Yen's father is infertile. She's their only heir. Her position is ironclad now. Between us, she poisoned him. You know, viper's heart even as a child. From behind a second-floor curtain, I watched irony flash across her face. She stepped out. The two of them went white as plucked quail. She gave a thin, icy smile and left. I never saw those two at the Phó house again. Years later, when I brought it up, she lay in my arms and laughed softly. They weren't wrong. Really, my father's infertility is partly because of me. She knows how to wield her looks. Anyone who's seen her cry softens, especially a father. After her mother died, she knew he'd remarry, which meant siblings would come, and someone would vie for the estate. On the 7th night memorial, She wore a white dress and hugged the doll he'd once given her. Crying in the living room. Dad, I dreamt you took me and Mom to the aquarium. I sat on your shoulders and felt like the happiest girl alive. But now I've lost Mom, am I losing you too? When the new aunt moves in, won't I become the unhappiest girl? Her tears were fragile, helpless. The next morning, he had a vasectomy. Complications left him truly infertile. She turned down study abroad and stayed. At 18, she founded her own cosmetics brand. In 3 short years, she was ready to list. She led the team into Co-Corp, an old consumer goods house that had expanded into cosmetics and body care but never quite found its stride. The moment she took the helm, the stock soared, ushering in a new golden era. People said she was a lovesick fool chasing Phó Huyên, a naive heiress. But even at their closest, she quietly took control of several key production lines owned by the Phó family, under the pretext that, one day, the Phó and Co. will be one family anyway. The Phó tried to trade a little for a lot. In the end, they lost everything. After we married, I turned down an overseas post. During my years abroad, I'd invested my engineering share into an intelligent robotics firm. It took off, paying several $1 million in dividends annually. I handed her every bank card and returned to our old university as a professor, a life that left room for her and for research. When she found out, she bit my jaw hard. Phó Dinh Han, I told you, I don't need anyone to sacrifice for me. I whispered, I can lose everything, except you. She's busy. If I chased ambition too, we'd drift apart. She doesn't know how long it took for me to be able to stand before her. How could I risk losing her for any career at all? She narrowed her eyes. Don't play the martyr. Lily told me. It was you pulling strings back then. Wasn't it? She only egged me on to chase you because you asked her to. My ears went red. I couldn't deny it. It was true. I solved a major tech project for her best friend. In return, she nudged Ko Min Yen toward me. I wrestled with myself the whole time, terrified she'd come to me just to spite Phó Huyên. More terrified she wouldn't come at all. And then she appeared in the library. God knows I couldn't read a single word. She had zero patience, sighing dramatically over books, yawning through runs, nodding off by the lake with a fishing rod in her hand. When she was about to bolt, I made my move, and for the rest of this life, I will never let go.